Okay, in this video we're going to talk about section 6.2, which covers one-to-one functions and inverse functions. So first we're going to talk about one-to-one, which is sometimes written like this, 1-1 for one-to-one in shorthand. So the definition of being a one-to-one function is that if x1 is not equal to x2, then f of x1 is not equal to f of x2. So in other words, if the x's are different, then the y's have to be different. So this relates back to when we first defined a function. So if you remember back, make that a little bigger. If you remember back to our original definition, we talked about a multiple choice test. And remember, for a multiple choice test, everybody's got to give us the same answer. So if we had something like 1 going to A, that was okay. Maybe 2 could go to B, that would be okay. But if 3 was C or B, then that was a problem, because what would you answer? Would you answer B or would you answer C? We don't know, and so that is not a function. Okay, so then when we looked at things that were a function, they worked like we would want a multiple choice test to work. So we could have 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And so maybe 1 had answer A, and 2 had answer C, and maybe 3 had answer A, and that was still okay because all of our questions had just one answer. So this is a function, but this is not one-to-one. So for one-to-one, if we have different x values, then the y values cannot be the same either. So see, what's happening here is that 1 and 3 are different x values, but they go to the same y value of A. So one-to-one is kind of a neat, tidy relation. It's kind of what you would want it to be, but it's more difficult for functions to be like this. So for one-to-one, we could have 1 go to A, let's say 2 goes to C, and 3 goes to B. This is one-to-one. For each x, there is just one y, and for each y, there is just one x. So this is a one-to-one function. Okay, so that's what we're looking for one-to-one function. For each, we just have each x to one y, that unique kind of relationship. All right, so again, we don't normally look at blobs and numbers and letters, we look at functions. So if you remember back also to our definition of function, we had the vertical line test. So remember, in order for it to be a function, it had to pass the vertical line test. And the vertical line test was playing the role of our x, and it told us that for each x there was only one y. So now in order for it to be one-to-one, it has to pass the horizontal line test as well. Okay, so horizontal line test. And it works the same way as the vertical line test. Okay, so let's look at a few examples here. So let's say that we have a circle. Okay, first off, is a circle a function? No, because remember our vertical line test. Oops, sorry, that's not quite vertical. It's a little bit harder to do on the tablet. Okay, so we hit 2 times, and so remember that is not a function. Okay, then we also used the parabola as an example. So we've got a parabola, and that one is a function. Okay, any vertical line is only going to cross once, but it is not one-to-one because our horizontal line crosses twice. So for each y, we could get 2 x's. So this one is a function, but not one-to-one. Okay, let's look at another example. Our graph of x cubed we're familiar with now. Okay, x cubed, let me switch to a different color here because it's going to be close. Okay, when we do the horizontal line test, it passes through in only one spot. Remember, even if it looks like it's going vertical, it's not actually. And then also for horizontal, any horizontal line we draw is also going to go through one spot. And again here, where it looks like it's kind of going horizontal, it is not. Okay, remember, if you zoom in, you'll see that it's not actually horizontal. So this one is a one-to-one function. Okay, so that's what we're looking for with one-to-one. Now, one thing that you'll see in the book, and it's not something that you really have to worry about too much right now, but it's something that you'll get into if you keep going in math, and you'll see it in the homework sections. So let's say that we have a parabola, and we want to be able to use this in the next section of in order to find an inverse of it. Now, we need this if we need this to be one-to-one, what we can do is we can restrict the parabola, just like we did in the piecewise defined function section. If we were to restrict our parabola to just this part of it, okay, so I'm going to erase this. Oops. Maybe not. Okay, so if we look at just that part of it, now is it one-to-one? Yes, now it passes the vertical line test and the horizontal line test. And if you remember back in our piecewise defined function, this would be x squared for x greater than or equal to 0. So you may see this kind of thing in the homework section, and you don't need to worry about it too much. This isn't something that we're going to expect you to be able to do. Just know that they are making it so that it's one-to-one, so that everything else that we do in this section works. So this is a restriction so that this function will work for what we want it to work for. Okay? We'll talk about that a little bit more in class.